Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try to take everything and add a darker twist to it. We love playing evil characters. We like being the monster for the good of all the mortal races. So please like, share, subscribe, comment. We'd love to talk to you guys about your characters, your builds, some of the inspirations for playing some of these characters. It is a wonderful thing to interact with you guys and hear your stories. So without further ado, let's jump into this week's video, the College of VALOR Bard. The College of VALOR Bard comes to us from the player's handbook. This is referred to as one of the original Gish subclasses for the Bard, and this often gets compared to the College of Swords Bard, which we just did a video on. So this is going to be a little bit more comparative between the two. So if there's a lot of comparisons, I suggest you read up on that, or maybe have just some general knowledge about the College of Swords Bard. This is another Gish type build. If you're not familiar with Gish, the term, it is a character that uses physical attacks like weapons and things like that, as well as magic. So you can play around and come up with a couple of different ideas for your characters, base that purely on your spell selection and what you do in combat, and really create a character that's very significant to how you want to play. When you pick this subclass at 3rd level, you gain access to bonus proficiencies. You gain proficiencies in medium armor, shields, and martial weapons. This gives you availability to use all weapons in the game. Medium armor and shields boost up your AC from light armor, and it kind of encourages you to take more chances in physical combat, which is kind of what you want when you're building a Gish. This tends to win over College of Swords a lot simply because you get to use shields. I'm not of the school of thought where you have to be worried about surviving. Combat is one of those things where you really got to look at all of your assets and what your team actually does. It's okay to get hit every now and again. It's also okay to retreat. You have a number of tools in your kit because you are a full spellcaster. You have access to a lot of disabling and buffing spells, so I really wouldn't worry too much about whether or not your AC is all there and whether or not you need to worry about using shields. Also, if you're very hardline by playing by the rules as they are written, it is very difficult to keep putting away weapons and drawing them and casting spells and pulling out spell focuses just to be able to use that. It's complicated. It sometimes makes things harder than they have to be. It is something that's DM negotiable, so maybe they don't worry too much about that. It is set up to make you want to be in combat and do cool combat-oriented things. So feel encouraged to do so, and definitely try and pick something that reflects well with your character. I'm always of the school of thought that your weapon selection should reflect your character in some way, shape, or form. At 3rd level, you gain access to combat inspiration. You learn to inspire others in battle. When a creature has bardic inspiration from you, you can roll that die and add the number rolled to a weapon damage roll it just made. Alternatively, when an attack roll is made against the creature, it can use its reaction to roll the bardic inspiration die and add the number to its AC for that attack, after seeing the roll but before knowing whether it hits or misses. This is the real big feature with the College of VALOR Bard. Altogether, this is a good way to add some additional damage. This is beneficial more early on than it is later. Yes, later on the bardic inspiration die will turn into a d12, which is a big number that can be rolled, but the majority of this is going to be used early game when you get this ability. Now, I am not too favorable on this ability simply because you need to already have bardic inspiration on a creature for them to use these abilities. And it's a 10-minute duration, so you have to kind of do this in preparation for battle. So it's a little interesting of a concept to have to work with. You need to know when you're going to be in combat, or at least be ready to pounce in combat and use that bardic inspiration. So you have to be very, very smart about how you use that to gain the most benefit of this ability. At 6th level, you gain access to extra attack. You can now attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action. This is to help you keep pace with more of your melee fighters, your rangers, your paladins, your barbarians, when they're not using their strong nova abilities or certain things at that point. You are a 6th level caster, so previously at 5th level you gain access to 3rd level spells. That is a big boon in the spellcasting world, as well as your cantrips, whatever damaged cantrips you have, or maybe you're prepared to take some with magical secrets, or you took a feat. Those damage dice get bumped up to their next number. So at 6th level, this is really kind of one of those things, and you got to weigh the weight of where you are and what campaign you're in. Extra attack is a big boost in damage. A lot of multi-classers will not get extra attack until about this level anyway, so don't feel too worried about it. But this is one of those circumstances, because you only get 2 attacks, things like dual wielding are very beneficial to you, because you can get a 3rd attack if you're dual wielding with a finesse light weapon, which will give you about 3d6 plus your modifier for the first 2 attacks, because you do need that fighting style to add that additional 1. It is more of a concept to keep pace than it is really an ability that defines the College of Valor Bard, but it still gives you a reason to jump into melee and to keep pace with your other teammates. At 14th level, you gain access to the final Valor Bard ability, Battle Magic. You have mastered the art of weaving spellcasting and weapon use into a single harmonious act. When you use your action to cast a Bard spell, you can make 1 weapon attack as a bonus action. This counts for cantrips, so if you use your magical secrets to pick up Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade, this works perfectly in that scenario. Don't be too worried about what spells you cast, because this is going to be very intricate into who your bard is. Maybe you cast a debuff and then you swing in with your stab or whatever attack you are using. Incorporate those to really make your attacks meaningful. It's really one of those things that you kind of get a bonus action to do. You don't really have that many bonus actions unless you specifically selected spells that do so. It is a very important thing that you know your spells in order to make the most of this ability. You can always just Booming Blade and regular attack, and it does a pretty hefty amount of damage at this point, and it's beneficial to you. Spellcasters, you are a full spellcaster. Your spell list is the biggest influence in what your character does. I cannot express that enough. Our final thoughts. The College of Valor Bard is a unique class, as it is a stepping stone to some of the other classes that came out. Battle Magic is very similar to the Bladesinger ability, but you get it really, really late. You gain a couple abilities with your combat inspiration, which is cool and makes your bardic inspiration go a little further. But ultimately, when you look at this subclass, it's very hard to not compare it to the Swords Bard, and I think the Swords Bard takes it 100% of the time. I think the Valor Bard gives you defensive options, which are great, in all honesty, but the Swords Bard gives you that with Blade Flourish. The Sword Bard gives you a fighting style. The Sword Bard doesn't really hanker you down into using all of your abilities preemptive, and you can use it a little interchangeably as the flow of combat suits you. It is interesting because it is, again, a stepping stone. This was from the Player's Handbook. Bladesinger came out in Swordcoast Adventure. Swords Bard came out in Xanathars. There's been a lot of expansion in understanding and playing with the character to get to that point, where like these Gish builds are now getting better and better and better. But I think the Valor Bard just is outdated. I think it really misses something that really makes it distinct and important, because you really don't have anything to make your bard really need to do these things when they can just cast spells. It's a very intricate kind of a thing where you have to be really smart about your spell choice no matter what, because you are a bard and you do need to juggle those things and know a lot of other characters' spells lists, other classes' spell lists, so you can make use of magical secrets and all things that really fit into what your bard is supposed to be. The Valor Bard is a great theory. It is a great idea, because when you think of a swashbuckler or someone sliding into combat and being this charismatic force, like Robin Hood from Robin Hood Men in Tights, like he was a Valor Bard. He was out there. It was funny. I'm old for mentioning it. I'm sorry. But that's what a Valor Bard is. Yeah, you're great. You're charismatic. But what do you really provide beyond that. Blade flourishing and College of Swords, you do get intricate things that you can do. I think if you're really considering this subclass, I think you'll almost 100% of the time be happier as a College of Swords bard. I know I tend to not agree with super metagamers because the value of picking up a shield and things like that is very good. But I think there's a lot of excitement to not being really built for melee combat and now being able to do that. It's one of those like devil may care attitudes that's like fun and exciting, and being a risk taker is part of being a bard. I think they go hand in hand, and honestly, as great as I love most subclasses, this is just one of those subclasses I just can't get it. I can't find that way to want to play this subclass when I feel like a better improved version of it already exists. That being said, I'm sorry if I disappointed any of you guys. I'm sorry if this wasn't what the build that you wanted it to be. I just don't say it. And maybe there's a lot of people out there who love their Valor Bards. I want to hear those stories. Tell me I'm wrong. Show me an experience you had that was great, because that's so much an awesome feeling to read what you guys have done. Thank you so much for sticking through this long. I really appreciate what you do. The channel appreciates everything you do, and surely and most importantly, thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.